So help me welcome Maya Jewell Zeller.
What a welcome, thank you. Thank you, friends, for being here. Henrietta is one of my favorite poets, but she's also one of my favorite people. She's so much fun on and off the stage. So if you don't know her yet, please get to know her. Thank you for coming out tonight, and thank you, Mark and Elk River Books, for hosting. Thank you, Evelyn, for coming, and everyone else. I'm not going to name everyone because that would take some time. I'm going to read 3 short excerpts from this book from the start of 3 different chapters. And I'm going to skip around in time just a little bit. And then at the end, we'll talk a bit, so we'll have a chance to answer questions. But I'm going to open with the essay/chapter, because this is a memoir in essays, and it plays with form a little bit. The one called Scavenger Panorama, because I usually exist somewhere at the intersection of the natural world and the scavenger aesthetic. And I'll just read the first couple pages of this one. I am most myself when poking a dead cow with a stick. I am 12 years old, and the cow is out in the flood field. Its eyes 2 stuck moons, their orbit interrupted by the water they pulled here that then pulled them. I'm curious about the interior of the animal. I've already seen a calf birthed dead, the heavy, dark blood in dawn fog. When that cow was in labor, the men pulled her baby out with chains, hooked to a truck. I heard the moans in the early dark and climbed the fence in my rubber boots, dodging old coils of barbed wire to cross the field to where they worked and she labored. The birth reeked of exhaust and copper. The mother died too. And I've seen a beef carcass, whole, skinned, a marbling of pink and white in a freezer, the carcass what people in places like ours call meat, but the cow had a name. I'm not interested in another pastoral that shows you the honey but not the sting, so I'll tell you, I love the way pus and entrails resemble a universe. And I'll tell you, those men were wrong when they used chains to pull a newborn from its mother's pulsing womb, but they knew they'd fucked up when the hemorrhages got so strong that they shot her. Jane Eyre says, the shadows are as important as the light. And you know by now that I'm with her. And what's more, I'd elaborate. The stitches are as important as the surface. The source of the scraps or the cut of flank or the knowledge as important as the finished quilt, the cooked meat, the art. I come from a long line of scavengers. Nothing began as beautiful in the traditional sense, but if you can look at a junked car and see its potential to house a chicken and the chicken as the origin of a perfect egg, you're going to be okay. Or I think I'm okay. I'm a mother now, zooming back into the snags and pulls of my own memory, wondering what I'll find now that the surge has subsided. I prod the cow with the stick, wanting it to explode. I'm sad she's dead, but also I want to know what worlds are inside her. So the essay goes on and it kind of explores in a scavenger panorama of pulling things together, a narrative. But you'll have to buy the book to read the rest. So, do that here at Elk River Books. And maybe buy 2 copies and support the store as much as you can. So now I'm going to read from the first essay/chapter called The Privilege Button. And that young girl who grew up poking dead cows with sticks grew up to, earn some degrees and kind of have to reckon with that. So this is the start of The Privilege Button. A young poet with low elite culture literacy walks into a wine bar and scans the menu, not sure what to order. She's trying to come off as sophisticated. After all, she holds an advanced degree. But wine bars make her nervous because she has never heard most of the menu items pronounced out loud. She finds something that sounds simple and familiar enough. She knows well what wild things a hungry person can eat. Rose hips are high in vitamin C, and they make a bittersweet, earthy tea. The poet says, loudly, confidently, "I'll have the rose," pronouncing it like the flower, one syllable with a long O. "What's that?" asks the bartender, assuming he misheard. Her friend leans in, interjecting, "She'll have the rosé." "Right," the poet says, blushing. "That's what I meant. When the wine comes, it does not taste like roses. This is because it is drawn from the skin of fermenting red grapes. Named for its color, it has nothing to do with flowers." When I was a child, I dreamed of a literary life. I could feel it when I read poetry, the dark spirit of the earth coming up, as Spanish poet Federico Garcia Lorca would say, through the soles of the feet. Wrote Lorca, "One must awaken the duende in the remotest mansions of the blood." My blood is more like a trailer park. This is the story of how I came to live in an HOA, an acronym you may know, but in case you too were ever flustered at a dessert menu and had to look up how to pronounce ganache, HOA stands for Homeowners Association, which is governed by a set of rules for neighborhood living. Fairwood Park 2, HOA, Article 2, Protective Covenants, Section 2.04, Temporary Structures. No trailer, basement, tent, shack, garage, barn, camper, or other outbuilding or any structure of temporary character erected or placed on the property shall at any time be used as a residence. When we first moved to Spokane, my husband and I lived in a 1912 house near West Central. We pulled weeds, planted lilacs, phlox, and fruit trees. We put plastic on our old windows to keep out the cold, and when, that first January, the temperature dropped into the negatives for over a week, we used a hairdryer to thaw the uninsulated pipes that ran too close to the foundation wall. We tried wrapping them too, but it seemed their freezing was inevitable. There were things about the house that we couldn't fix, and we loved it for those things. I always felt rich there, and I thought our $100,000 loan was a fortune. We were homeowners, or at least could be if we made our payments. I was still baffled by the notion of a permanent address. My parents had been renters, even squatters. Sometimes we lived in a garage, sometimes we lived in a van. When I repeated this to my husband years into marriage, he shook his head and said, with a realization I hadn't reached and still resist, "Maya, you were homeless." I had never thought of myself as homeless. Itinerant, maybe. Gypsy, sure. I didn't yet know the term's problematic usage. Not homeless. More like a mouse after a flood, finding a new place for its nest. We made those nests in rural areas where we ate salmon my brother caught from the river, blackberries we picked in the fields. We always had some kind of roof, a basin, a wood stove. We usually went to school, and we visited the library. My mother sang Cher's Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves while she darned our socks, and my father hummed King of the Road when, 2 beers into the night, he still felt jolly. Sometimes my father drove a tow truck and filled the bushes around us with junked cars, treasure troves where we discovered free cassette tapes and cool t-shirts. The cars are playhouses, magic passageways to other lives, fuel to dreams of a future in which I would be sophisticated enough to attend fancy fundraisers in ornate buildings. I dreamed these things the way a child dreams them, without any real awareness of my family's socioeconomic status, without any shame of it. Section 2.05, minimum dwelling cost. No single family dwelling shall be permitted on any lot at a cost of less than $100,000 exclusive of land. When I began college in the late 90s, the socioeconomic privilege of my peer cohort was often taken for granted by my instructors, who said things like, "Well, we can't really understand being middle class." They used words like cul-de-sac and IRA, and sometimes made cultural references from TV shows like Seinfeld and channels like CNN. They said the Dow is down 2 points. I kept my eyes low. I didn't really know what middle class meant, though I'd been passing so far. When I took a course in the culture of poverty as it related to education and language register, I finally understood. I grew up in poverty, in a family of addiction. But I knew how to move between formal and informal language registers, so no one picked up on my past. Still, I was what we were studying: how to move from a culture of poverty into a culture of education, how to serve an at-risk population, students with family lives like mine, cycles of addiction, impermanent addresses, free and reduced lunches. In discussion, my classmates often said things like, "I had no idea so many people in America lived like this," or "I never realized poverty could be so beyond your control." I kept quiet. I was not interested in being a lab rat. I was not interested in changing, in their view, from a competent, assertive person I'd worked so hard to become to an anomaly of class transcendence. How many questions would follow? They were questions I did not feel comfortable answering. I still don't. So the essay goes on from there, and it, weaves the adulthood with the childhood, and the Fairwood Park protective covenants keep coming in and out as kind of counterpoints. And then the book goes on for a few more chapters, and I'm going to close with the start of the essay, Complete the Sentence, because I think it's kind of in dialogue with the first one, but the children appear in it, and I think it's always fun to have children in essays. So thank you, everyone, for being here again, and thank you again to Mark. And Jenny, I'm so happy you got to be here. I was going to tell you earlier, I was like, I can't just keep naming people, but I can't help myself. I was in Missoula earlier this week, and we were going to maybe intersect there, and then we didn't, and Jenny's here, so now I told them way more than you wanted to know. So this is called Complete the Sentence, and you'll pick up really quickly on what it's doing. I'll read a few pages from this. Complete the sentence. My 7-year-old son comes home with a worksheet from this week's spelling practice. Directions. Look at this week's spelling words in the box below. Then write a spelling word to complete each sentence. Roast, going, loaf, cold, both, bowl, float, throw, grow, soap. The choices begin like this. Do you think the pen will sink, or we baked a fresh for dinner? We baked a fresh bowl for dinner? I wonder. Do you think the pen will sink or grow? Do you think a pen will sink or throw? Sure, this could be a very delightful exercise, I think to myself. My 10-year-old daughter explains, you just guess what they want you to put. You just try to think of what your teacher would do, she says, and you do that. Her brother has gotten 2 wrong. They are numbers 4 and 8, which he has transposed. Mom will make her pot cold on Saturday. The wind made the weather feel roast. Yes, I think. Mom will make her pot cold on Saturday. It has been warm from tea all week. On Saturday, she will wash it and put it away. Or maybe her cold outdoor pots have been full of ferns. She needs to move indoors. Warm wind does make the weather feel quite roast. What's roast? My son asks. It means hot, we explain. Or I say pot roast is a cooked meat in a crock pot. Ew, says my son. He does not eat meat, and perhaps not uncoincidentally has never seen nor heard of pot roast. I have never made it. I have not made it on Saturday, and I have not made it any other day. I see the problem. This question had no cultural context for him, as it would have no cultural context for any child who had never heard of a pot roast, or who doesn't use shampoo and soap when they shower, or who doesn't bake a fresh loaf for dinner, or who doesn't eat a bowl of cereal before school. This test has quite a bit of cognitive dissonance for those children, I explained to mine. It's a problem of cultural literacy. We know, says the 10-year-old. When you were a child, this would have been confusing to you. No, I say. I read and I understood prediction, so I imagined what they would want, like you do, and then I would answer based on context clues. Like on the SAT, says my children's father. What's the SAT, says our daughter. It's a test, not for your mom. But I did okay. Yes, she did okay because she could guess. She did a little better than me, he says. But she should have done a lot better. She's smarter. It's just that the test was made more for me. I had taken Latin. What are the questions like? Our daughter asks. Her father thinks, like this. A branch is to a tree as a chair is to me. Oh, I know this one. As a child, I would have thought A, barn, or B, furniture store. But the answer is C, living room. No, says my 10-year-old. It's table. My husband gives me the pity look, or maybe it's disapproval. Yeah, table. It's table, Maya. Oh, I say quietly. I feel a weird shame. I thought it was living room. I thought that would be right. I didn't even think of table. See, my husband says to our children, the test wasn't made for your mom. But, I say proudly, our family would do very well on Family Feud. We know how to help each other, I say. We know how to work together. No, says my husband, you're not the demographic for that either. You have no idea how to imagine America. My friend Ellie tells me later it's dining set. She was raised outside of Boston. I look at a practice SAT question from the internet. It goes like this. Directions. In the following question, a related pair of words or phrases is followed by 5 pairs of words or phrases. Choose the pair that best expresses a relationship similar to that in the original pair. Medicine is to illness as hunger is to thirst, etiquette is to discipline, law is to anarchy, love is to treason, or stimulant is to sensitivity. I hold 2 degrees from reputable institutions of higher learning. Both of my degrees are related to the English language and its usage. I do not initially see the clear answer to this practice question. I reason it out. Medicine heals illness. Which of the other word pairs is about healing? Is it hunger heals thirst? When I was gone a long time from the house, in the forest, along the river, or hauling hay from a neighbor's field and getting hungry, I had a few tactics. Drink more water, eat what's edible in season, salmon berries, thimbleberries, blackberries, huckleberries. If nothing's in season, chew a grass stem. Drink the nectar from a clover, do a bee dance, pretend it's not raining, huddle in the barn and write a story in your head. We're children who somehow lost their parents. Our library books taught us the rules of young adult literature. Outside, the staccato pings on the barn's roof the same rhythm as flitting trout in the shallows. Walk in the rain and pretend you're a fish. The air carries the waft of cow manure off the field fog, my hems mud-soaked and frayed. I could strip off these clothes and hang them by the wood stove, heat water, drink more tea. We usually had eggs from the chickens and salmon from the river. If we didn't, we would again soon. Walk in the rain and pretend you're a fish. Go in the house and get dry clothes. What was I thirsty for? What hunger could possibly heal it? Etiquette heals discipline? I've read of etiquette in books. I knew curtsy, please, thank you, cross your legs, fold your hands in your lap, don't interrupt your father. It involved don't tell your classmates your father smokes pot. This was before it was legal. It involved be quiet when he speaks. It involved a lot of being quiet. At my request, my begging actually, because I'd heard of but never experienced church, my mother took me to Mass once when I was 5. It involved a lot of kneeling and very beautiful stained glass windows and a man who droned and people in robes who sang. It involved leaving before the priest could ask my mother where she'd been for the last 7 years. Discipline was making the bed, staying in the van while our parents recovered billiards tables in taverns in strange towns, completing the chore list. Saturday mornings, we had to do all of it before we could scamper into the woods, field, barn. Before we could go down to the river, the grass is bending like penitence, the religion of currents, the gray sky that smelled of rain. No manner of pleasing or thanking or curtsying got you out of chopping kindling or making bread. Don't share the bread, we have only so much bread. What was the difference between discipline and etiquette? Both felt like something you did because someone expected it. I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much.